Over the past couple of weeks here, I've made two videos talking about old school Yu-Gi-Oh card text, and I just want to say that the response to those discussion videos has been overwhelmingly positive. It's been really fun researching all these old cards, and I promise that a third installment will be here within the next couple of weeks. However, Waboku, a card that I mentioned in the second episode of this series, raised a lot of questions and a lot of concerns, and also I saw a lot of comments about the card sort of justifying its original card text with old school Yu-Gi-Oh rules. In today's video, we're going to learn about the history of Waboku and talk about why the original text was written in such a weird way. Before that though, I want to tell you about today's sponsor. Today's video is sponsored by Ridge Wallets. A lot of people carry around outdated, bulky leather wallets, but the Ridge wallet isn't any of those things. It's sleek, it's industrial, and makes for the perfect upgrade from your outdated wallet. You can easily hold up to 12 cards at a time, and there's even a convenient money clip on the back for carrying cash. Ridge wallets even have a lifetime warranty, so you'll never need to buy another wallet. The Ridge team is so confident that you'll like it that they'll let you try it out for 45 days, and you can send it back for a full refund if you don't absolutely love it. If you're interested in picking up a Ridge wallet, make sure to click the link in the description below, and don't forget to use promo code Dzeeff in all caps for 10% off your order. Just so we're all on the same page before we get into the main discussion, let's take a look at the first printing of Waboku to understand where the confusion stems from. The original printing of Waboku says this: any damage inflicted by an opponent's monster is decreased to 0 during the turn this card is activated. Now that might not sound that confusing, and that's because in theory it's not that confusing, but what this card actually does is not only reduce the damage inflicted to 0, but also protects your monsters from being destroyed by battle that turn. This is not implied anywhere on the original effect, nor is it implied on the second errata of this card, but eventually they changed the text to reflect what the card actually does. Today's video has to start with Magic the Gathering, and even though I don't really play Magic the Gathering, I do recognize that it obviously had a huge influence on early Yu-Gi-Oh! The card that Waboku was very clearly based off of is called Fog, and it says creatures deal no combat damage this turn. Obviously, the original text of Waboku is very close to this text of Fog, and that makes sense, right? Old school Yu-Gi-Oh! Did borrow a lot from old school Magic the Gathering, so you're going to see some similarities. The big difference here is that combat does not work the same in Magic the Gathering and Yu-Gi-Oh! In Magic the Gathering, creatures have power and toughness, and while Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards might look similar on paper in some cases, because they do have attack and defense, they do not work in the same way. In Magic the Gathering, the toughness on a creature is basically how much damage must be dealt to it in a single turn to destroy it. With this basic understanding of how Magic the Gathering's power and toughness works, we as Yu-Gi-Oh! Players can pretty easily understand how Fog interacts with those mechanics. However, the attack and defense of Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards do not work in the same way as power and toughness on Magic cards. This is why so many Magic players that watched that original video were confused as to why I was confused about the original Waboku text, because to be fair, in a Magic the Gathering context, the original way that Waboku was written actually does make sense. However, in Yu-Gi-Oh! That's not the case. In the same way that I occasionally watch Magic the Gathering videos, even though I don't really understand the game on a competitive level, I am well aware that many Magic the Gathering players will stumble upon my videos from time to time. What I would suggest though is not taking any Magic the Gathering rulings and trying to fit them into a Yu-Gi-Oh! Context. But don't worry, this video is not only about Magic the Gathering comparisons, because there's a lot more that we have to talk about in relation to old school Yu-Gi-Oh! One of the other frequent comments that I saw on that video was from people that said in the original rulebook, damage and destroyed by battle were basically treated as the same term, which simply isn't true. Now, I unfortunately could not find a PDF of the original rulebook, which was version 2.0 for the TCG. We actually never got a 1.0, which is kind of interesting. However, I actually do own an original 2002 Kaiba starter deck, which means I have access to the very first rulebook ever printed in the Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG. And in this rulebook, while I unfortunately do not have the glossary that we more recently see in rulebooks for Yu-Gi-Oh!, they do have a section that deals with battle damage and destroyed by battle and all of that that stuff. And in this section, I would want to point out here that attack results and damage are two separate entries under each possible outcome. As you would expect, it goes into great detail about all the different outcomes that can happen when two different monsters are battling. You have all sorts of attack position versus attack position, depending on whose monster has more attack. You have all sorts of things related to attack position versus defense position, and stuff related to those interactions. What I want to point out here, though, specifically, is when you are attacking a monster in defense position. The attack results are when the attacking monster's attack points are higher than the defense points of the opponent's monster. The opponent's monster is destroyed, and then one line lower it says damage. Neither player takes any damage. Their life points remain the same. Now, if you were to take that original version of Waboku and say, okay, in the original version of Yu-Gi-Oh, 0 damage meant the monster wasn't destroyed by battle. That would imply, as this rulebook says, that when you attack a defense position monster, no damage is taken, so the defense position monster isn't destroyed by battle. In other words, as per the original rulebook, when you attack a defense position monster, your opponent takes no damage, but their monster is still destroyed. However, when you attack an opponent's monster and they flip up a Waboku, which says all damage is reduced to 0, not only do they not lose any life points, but also their monster isn't destroyed by battle. And before anyone mentions it, yes, I'm aware that it's a starter deck, and you might think that starter decks don't come with the full rulebook, and for a while that was true. However, in old school Yu-Gi-Oh, for the first couple of starter decks, there were no structure decks, which means that this was the most common way that people got access to the original rulebook. This raises a very important question. How did old school players understand Waboku if the original text did not reflect what the card actually did? To understand the answer to this question, you have to realize that back in the day, getting rulings wasn't as straightforward as it is right now. Back in the day, there weren't as many tournaments, which means less judges, and also there weren't nearly as many online resources as we have right now. That being said, we did have some resources besides just hearing rulings from a friend of a friend of a friend, and we can look at these resources to understand how Waboku was supposed to work. The earliest example of a definitive Waboku ruling that I can find was on the original Yu-Gi-Oh website. Using the Wayback Machine, I was able to find the original Yu-Gi-Oh website and how it looked in 2004. Please keep in mind, we do know for a fact that this website did exist before 2004. It was listed on the back of the original starter decks from 2002. That was just the earliest screenshot of the page that the Wayback Machine had. But anyway, on this website, they have a ruling page that lists a whole bunch of cards and answers some common questions. Under the Waboku section, it says, Waboku is a trap card that is flipped during your opponent's battle phase to stop his attack and protect your monsters. No damage is taken by either player, no monsters are destroyed on either side, face down monsters are flipped face up. This ends the battle phase when Waboku is flipped. Now you might notice here that many parts of this answer actually do not appear on any version of Waboku, from old school Yu-Gi-Oh to new school Yu-Gi-Oh. Nowhere in any version does it say that you have to use it during the opponent's battle phase, nowhere in any version does it say that it stops the attack, and nowhere in any version does it say that it ends the battle phase. To be completely honest here, many old school rulings back in the day, even the ones that were posted on the official website, were pretty inconsistent. You would have cards change from week to week or month to month or event to event, which does occasionally happen in modern Yu-Gi-Oh when something is ruled the wrong way, but back in old school Yu-Gi-Oh, stuff was ruled different ways all the time. That being said, I don't want you guys to focus too much on those weird parts of this answer. What I want you guys to notice here is that on this old ruling, the oldest ruling for Waboku that I can find posted on the official Yu-Gi-Oh website, even in this ruling, it does clarify that damage and being destroyed by battle are different things. Besides reading that official posting on the Yu-Gi-Oh website and sharing it with their friends and their locals, there is one other way that I feel a lot of people, myself included, were able to understand Waboku and how it actually worked. As far as I know, basically every single old school Yu-Gi-Oh video game followed the way that Waboku was supposed to work, not what was written on the text. Back in the day, those video games were extremely popular. You would watch the TV show, you would play the video games, you would buy the cards. So if Waboku is working one way in the official video game, naturally people are going to assume that's how it works in real life. Admittedly, Yu-Gi-Oh video games are not perfect. Oftentimes they do get one or two rulings wrong, or they go off of OCG TP rulings instead of TC rulings, but in this case, I think most people understood Waboku worked the way it did in the video game, and also the way that it said on the official Yu-Gi-Oh website. This is all, of course, despite the fact that the original text of Waboku does not imply what either the video game or the official website were saying about its effect. That brings us to how the text of Waboku has changed over the years to accurately reflect how it works. In Starter Deck Yugi Evolution, released in 2004, Waboku got a small update. In this version of the card, it says, make all battle damage inflicted by monsters on your opponent's side of the field 0 during this turn. Notice here, even though we're now 2 years out and the card has been reprinted a few times, that we still do not have anything that mentions being destroyed by battle in its text. However, it did update one thing. You'll notice here that it says battle damage instead of just damage, because technically that first version of Waboku could stop burn damage from something like Cannon Soldier. Surprisingly, it wouldn't be until Structure Deck Invincible Fortress, released in 2006, until we would finally get a version of Waboku with the correct text. This version of Waboku says, you take no battle damage this turn, your monsters cannot be destroyed as a result of battle this turn. That is pretty much what Waboku does even in modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Here's the thing, we'll never really know why Waboku had the wrong text for so many years, especially considering it did receive reprints during that time. Regardless, I hope you guys enjoyed today's discussion video about Waboku and its very strange history. I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.